There comes a moment when every person must face the truth, the moment when you realize that life will not change simply because you have suffered long enough. Sympathy cannot open the door to your future, and circumstances will not suddenly become easier because you are exhausted. The road ahead remains where it is, silent and unmoved, waiting for a decision that can only come from you. Family may offer advice, friends may give encouragement, and a teacher may point toward the right direction. Yet the step that changes everything still belongs to the person living this life. As long as you wait for an outside force to appear, you continue placing your destiny in the hands of things you cannot control. That hope may feel comforting, but over time it quietly becomes a cage. You wait for inspiration, the perfect moment, the return of confidence, the disappearance of fear. And then years pass while your position remains almost unchanged. The truth can hurt, yet it also has the power to set you free. The moment you accept that no miracle is about to arrive, you begin to recognize the strength that has been neglected within you. Growth does not begin with applause. It begins in a quiet room where you can no longer hide behind the role of a victim. In that silence, the past returns with all its wounds, failures, betrayals, and lost opportunities. Those experiences may leave marks, but they do not have the authority to write the rest of your story. The pain you have endured is only one chapter, not the entire book. The greatest tragedy is not being knocked down. It is choosing to remain on the ground and calling it fate. People often use old circumstances to justify present hesitation. They repeat what happened to them as proof that moving forward is impossible, then slowly build a prison from their own memories. Power returns only when excuses come to an end. You do not need to deny your losses, nor must you pretend that nothing ever hurt. What matters is facing those experiences honestly, accepting what cannot be changed, then refusing to let them continue controlling the choices you make today. From that point, identity begins to shift. You are no longer someone pushed around by life, but a person capable of choosing a direction within the chaos. The solitude of this journey is not a punishment. It is the training ground of the inner self, the place where every false mask begins to fall away. When the noise disappears, you discover whether your word to yourself carries any weight. A small promise broken repeatedly weakens trust from within. A simple commitment honored consistently rebuilds the self-respect that was slowly worn down. Change does not need to begin with a dramatic act. It may start with getting up on time, finishing the work you have avoided, leaving behind a habit that numbs your spirit, or sitting with fear instead of continuing to escape from it. These choices may create no immediate applause, yet they are quietly shaping a new person. The outside world sees only the final result. While the foundation is always built in darkness, for that reason, stop wasting time searching for permission. Confidence does not need to come before movement, because it is created through action repeated long enough. Perfection is also unnecessary at the beginning, since it often becomes a polished disguise for fear. What matters most is standing up with complete honesty about who you are, without decoration, avoidance, or blame. The person capable of changing your life is not somewhere far away. That person is present in the mirror, carrying everything you have lost, every mistake you have made, and every fear you have held. When that person chooses responsibility, the first door opens. From there, the real battle begins, but this time you enter it with clear eyes and a will that finally belongs to you. The first door opens when responsibility replaces waiting, but the path beyond that door does not lead into comfort. It leads into weather. Once you choose to take ownership of your life, the storms that once seemed meaningless begin to reveal another purpose. A tree growing in shallow soil may look strong during calm seasons, yet the first violent wind exposes what lies beneath the surface. Roots determine whether it bends, breaks, or remains. Human character follows the same law. Easy days may show your preferences, but difficult seasons reveal your structure. Pressure uncovers the depths of your patience, the stability of your values, and the strength of your inner foundation. This is why hardship should not be judged only by the pain it creates. It must also be measured by the depth it demands from you. When life becomes heavy, the instinct is to ask why this burden arrived, why the timing is unfair, why others seem to move forward without the same struggle. Those questions may feel natural, but they rarely produce strength. A better question changes the direction of the mind. What is this experience training in me? Perhaps it is teaching endurance, humility, restraint, courage, or the ability to remain steady when certainty disappears. The storm does not always come to block the road. Sometimes it comes to remove the weakness that would have destroyed you later. Growth often begins where control ends. When plans collapse, approval vanishes, or progress becomes invisible. The outer supports you trusted can no longer carry your weight. You are forced inward. In that hidden place, the roots begin to search deeper. This process is uncomfortable because depth requires the death of old dependence. The version of you that needed constant reassurance starts to fade. The mind that panicked whenever life changed begins to learn stillness. The heart that once mistook difficulty for punishment slowly understands that resistance can become preparation. Strong roots are formed through contact with uncertainty, disappointment, loneliness, and delay. Each hard season asks whether your principles remain intact when rewards are absent. It asks whether you can continue without recognition, hold your direction while emotions move like violent wind, and keep your purpose alive through silence. A weak foundation seeks escape from every discomfort. A mature one studies the lesson, adjusts its posture, and remains present. This does not mean glorifying suffering or accepting every wound without wisdom. Some situations require distance, boundaries, or departure. Strength is not passive endurance. It is the ability to recognize what must be faced, what must be released, and what must never be allowed to shape your identity. The storm becomes useful only when you stop letting it decide who you are. Pain can harden a person into bitterness or deepen that person into awareness. Loss can create fear or teach gratitude. Rejection can damage self-worth or separate true direction from the need for approval. The event may be fixed, but the meaning remains in your hands. That choice is where character is built. Think of the tree again. Its roots do not complain about darkness. They walk beneath the ground, unseen, drawing strength from a place no audience will applaud. Much of your most important development will happen the same way. There will be days when nothing appears to change, yet patience is becoming wider. There will be nights when the future feels uncertain, yet courage is learning to stand without guarantees. There will be moments when silence feels empty, while beneath it your identity becomes harder to move. The world notices height, but life tests depth. A tall tree without strong roots is impressive only until the weather changes. A person without inner stability may shine while conditions are favorable, then collapse when comfort disappears. For that reason, do not pray only for an easier life. Build a self that can remain clear inside a difficult one. Let adversity show you where the foundation is weak, then strengthen that place with deliberate action. Let disappointment expose hidden attachment, then loosen its grip. Let delay train patience, and let uncertainty sharpen attention. The storm is not the final chapter. It is the workshop where the next version of you is shaped. When the wind settles, you may look the same from a distance, but something essential will have changed below the surface. Your roots will reach deeper, your center will become quieter, and the next challenge will no longer meet the same person. When the storm has forced your roots deeper, the next task is to build a structure strong enough to protect what has begun to grow. That structure is discipline. Motivation may open the door for a moment, but discipline keeps you walking after emotion has changed. Inspiration rises and falls with sleep, praise, weather, fear, and disappointment. A promise made only when enthusiasm is high has little value, because life will eventually test it under conditions that feel inconvenient. Discipline begins where excitement ends. It is the quiet agreement between who you are today and who you intend to become. No audience is required. No celebration is expected, and no reward needs to appear immediately. The work is completed because your word must carry weight. Every commitment honored becomes another stone in the foundation of self-trust. Each abandoned intention removes one. This is why broken promises to yourself are never small. They teach the mind that your decisions can be ignored after enough repetition. Hesitation becomes natural, confidence begins to weaken, and the distance between intention and action grows wider. A person may speak boldly about goals while secretly doubting every sentence, because the inner record remembers how often those words were betrayed. Confidence is not built through positive language alone. It is earned through evidence, waking when you said you would wake, completing the task you wanted to avoid, training when comfort invites delay, and remaining focused when distraction offers relief. These actions create proof that you can rely on yourself. The process may appear ordinary from the outside, yet something powerful is being constructed beneath the surface. Character is taking form through repetition. Discipline is not cruelty toward the self. It is a form of respect. It means refusing to sacrifice the future for temporary mood. Rest has value, recovery is necessary, and limits must be understood, but weakness should not be disguised as wisdom. There is a difference between pausing with intention and escaping through convenience. One preserves strength, the other slowly dissolves it. Mature discipline requires clear judgment. It knows when to push, when to recover, and when to return without drama. It does not depend on punishment. It depends on alignment. Your actions must support the life you claim to want. When behavior and vision move in opposite directions, frustration is unavoidable. The mind becomes divided. Energy is wasted, and progress remains uncertain. Alignment restores order. Small routines become the architecture of a stronger identity. A prepared morning reduces negotiation. A protected hour creates focus. A finished task strengthens momentum. A repeated standard gives shape to the day. None of these choices look heroic, yet heroism is often only consistency observed after enough time. The strongest people are rarely controlled by a dramatic burst of effort. Their power comes from decisions made so often that resistance loses authority. They remove unnecessary debate from essential action. The body may feel tired, the mind may complain, an emotion may search for an exit, but the agreement remains. This does not mean becoming rigid or mechanical. True discipline includes awareness. It listens without surrendering leadership. Feelings are recognized, then placed in their proper position. They become information, not commands. Fear may speak, but it does not choose the direction. Laziness may appear, but it does not receive control. Doubt may enter the room, yet the work continues. Over time, the inner voice changes. It becomes calmer because it no longer needs to persuade itself every morning. The standard has already been decided. That is the hidden freedom within discipline. What once felt restrictive begins to remove chaos. Time becomes clearer, attention becomes less scattered, and energy stops leaking into endless negotiation. The person you are building no longer asks whether the promise feels comfortable today. The question becomes whether the action belongs to the future you have chosen. With every answer expressed through behavior, the structure grows stronger. Eventually, the world may notice the result, but long before recognition arrives, you will feel the deeper change. Your word will begin to feel solid. Your presence will become steadier. Your choices will carry greater precision. Then discipline will no longer feel like something you force upon your life. It will become the quiet language of the person you have decided to be. Once discipline becomes the quiet language of your identity, progress begins to move in ways the outside world cannot immediately see. This is where many people lose patience because they expect visible results before the foundation has had time to strengthen. They work for several days, train for several weeks, read a few pages, save a little money, then look around and wonder why life still appears unchanged. The problem is not always lack of effort. Often it is the refusal to respect time. A seed does not break through the soil the moment it is planted. Beneath the surface, roots are forming, moisture is being absorbed, structure is taking shape, and life is preparing for a future appearance. Nothing seems dramatic, yet something essential is happening. Personal growth follows the same pattern. The earlier stages are quiet, private, and easy to underestimate. One better decision may feel insignificant. A focused hour may seem too small. A healthier meal, a completed workout, a page of study, or a moment of restraint may appear incapable of changing an entire life. Still, every choice leaves a mark. Each action becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. One vote does not create an identity, but repeated votes eventually make that identity difficult to deny. The power of 1% lies in its humility. It does not demand a perfect transformation today. It asks for a slight improvement, then requests the same honesty tomorrow. Over time, these small movements gather weight. The mind becomes sharper through regular study. The body becomes stronger through steady training. Financial stability grows through consistent restraint. Inner peace deepens when attention is repeatedly returned to what matters. None of these changes arrive through a single heroic moment. They emerge through accumulation. Water shapes stone not through force but through persistence. A river does not create its path with one powerful strike. It continues moving, and the landscape eventually yields. Your habits carry the same quiet authority. They may appear weak when viewed separately, yet together they construct the direction of this is why ordinary days matter more than rare moments of inspiration. Destiny is often decided on mornings that feel unimportant, during evenings when nobody is watching, inside choices that seem too small to mention. The future is not built only through major decisions. It is shaped by repeated responses to hunger, fatigue, distraction, fear, and convenience. When comfort invites you to abandon the plan, your answer becomes part of your character. When impatience tells you progress is too slow, continuing becomes an act of faith in the process. Results often arrive late because growth must first become stable. A tree that rises too quickly without deep roots becomes vulnerable. A person who gains attention before developing character can be destroyed by the very success one desired. Invisible preparation is not wasted time, it is protection. The hidden season teaches patience, removes dependence on applause, and forces you to value the work before the reward. During this period, comparison becomes dangerous. Looking at another person can make your own path seem delayed. Yet, you cannot see the years beneath their visible result. You do not know the sacrifices, failures, repetitions, or private corrections that built what now appears effortless. Measure your direction against the person you were yesterday. Ask whether your attention is cleaner, your decisions more deliberate, your standards more stable, and your actions more aligned. Improvement does not always feel powerful while it is happening. Sometimes it feels boring. Sometimes it resembles repetition without proof. That boredom is part of the training. Anyone can continue when progress is obvious. Maturity is revealed when the reward remains hidden. The farmer does not dig up the seed each morning to check whether it is growing. That would destroy the very process he hopes to accelerate. He prepares the soil, provides water, protects the field, and trusts the work taking place beyond sight. Treat your growth with the same wisdom. Stop disturbing the process through constant doubt. Protect the routines that strengthen you. Remove habits that poison the ground. Give attention to what deserves to live. A small improvement repeated with patience will eventually create distance from the life you once accepted. The change may be invisible today, but invisibility does not mean absence. Beneath the surface, your choices are gathering force. Your identity is becoming more defined, and the future is already taking shape through what you practice now. The future already taking shape through your daily practice will remain fragile until one deeper decision is made. The decision to accept complete responsibility for the direction of your life. This does not mean pretending that every wound was your fault, nor does it require denying the influence of family, culture, loss, betrayal, poverty, or injustice. It means recognizing that whatever happened before cannot be allowed to control what happens next. Blame may offer temporary relief because it places the burden somewhere else, but the comfort comes at a severe price. The moment you make another person responsible for your peace, progress, discipline, or identity, you also give that person authority over your future. Resentment then becomes a chain disguised as protection. You may believe anger keeps you strong, yet it often keeps your attention attached to the very past you claim to have escaped. Responsibility breaks that attachment. It says that the event may not have been chosen, but the response belongs to you. The damage may be real, but recovery is now your task. The road may be unfair, but your next step remains within your command. This is the dividing line between a life directed by circumstance and a life shaped by conscious action. Many people spend years explaining why they cannot change. Their reasons may sound convincing, and some may even be completely true. Yet truth about the past does not automatically create power in the present. A difficult childhood can explain fear, but it cannot build courage. A failed relationship can explain distrust, but it cannot create healing. A lost opportunity can explain disappointment, but it cannot produce the next opportunity. Explanation gives context, while responsibility creates movement. Until that difference is understood, intelligence itself can become another hiding place. The mind becomes skilled at defending weakness, justifying delay, and turning old pain into a permanent identity. Absolute responsibility removes that shelter. It asks you to examine your habits without decoration, your choices without excuses, and your results without blaming the world. Such honesty can feel severe, but it is one of the purest forms of freedom. When you admit that your current position has been shaped partly by repeated decisions, you also discover that new decisions can begin reshaping it. Power returns through ownership. The words "I am responsible" are not a confession of defeat. They are a declaration that control has been reclaimed. A person who lives by this principle becomes dangerous in the most constructive sense, because manipulation loses its grip. Disappointment loses its final authority, and hardship can no longer dictate identity. That person stops waiting for perfect conditions and begins working with what is available. Limited resources become a reason for precision. Past failure becomes information. Criticism becomes material for reflection. Delay becomes training in patience. Even mistakes are no longer treated as proof of unworthiness, but as evidence that correction is required. Responsibility does not demand self-hatred, it demands clarity. Shame traps the mind in what was done, while ownership directs attention toward what must be done now. One looks backward without purpose, the other studies the past and then returns to action. This distinction matters because harsh judgment can become another form of avoidance. Be honest without becoming cruel. Admit weakness without turning it into identity. Correct the pattern without destroying the person who is trying to grow. The mature mind understands that accountability and compassion can stand together. You can acknowledge that you chose poorly, wasted time, ignored warning signs, or betrayed your own standards, while still deciding that renewal begins today. No permission is required for that decision. The world does not need to agree with your new direction. Former versions of you do not need to approve. Responsibility is private before it becomes visible. It begins in the instant you stop negotiating with facts and start responding to them. Your body reflects how it has been treated. Your finances reveal repeated choices. Your skills display the hours invested, and your peace shows what your attention has been serving. These conditions are not permanent verdicts. They are feedback. Listen carefully, then adjust. The person who accepts feedback without defensiveness becomes difficult to stop because every result becomes useful. Success confirms alignment, failure reveals where correction is needed, and resistance exposes the limits that must be strengthened. Once this way of living becomes natural, fate no longer feels like a mysterious force acting from a distance. It becomes the accumulated direction of choices made with awareness. You may not control the weather, but you can prepare the ground. You may not command every outcome, but you can govern effort, focus, standards, and response. That is enough to begin changing the trajectory. When ownership becomes complete, excuses lose their language. The past loses its throne, and the future finally returns to the hands capable of building it. When responsibility returns the future to your hands, another truth becomes impossible to avoid. Every meaningful life demands a price. Comfort has a cost, growth has a cost, delay has a cost, and courage has a cost. The question is never whether pain will appear. The question is which pain will shape you. Discipline asks for effort now. Regret demands payment later. One strengthens your character through chosen difficulty. The other weakens your spirit through opportunities abandoned. The pain of discipline may arrive early in the morning, when the bed feels warm and the purpose feels distant. It may appear during training when the body asks to stop before the work is complete. It may sit beside you in a quiet room while distraction promises relief, and the task in front of you requires full attention. This discomfort is immediate, honest, and temporary. It burns because an older version of you is losing control. Regret feels different. It often enters without noise. At first, it looks harmless, perhaps one more delay, one ignored promise, one chance avoided because fear felt persuasive. Years later, those moments gather into a weight that cannot be dismissed. You begin to imagine the life that might have existed if courage had arrived sooner. The unused talent remains inside you, not as potential. Who does accusation? That is why regret can be heavier than failure. Failure at least carries evidence of effort. Regret carries the knowledge that the battle was never fully entered. Many people choose comfort because its consequence is hidden. The pleasure appears now while the cost waits patiently. Discipline works in the opposite direction. The strain appears first, while the reward develops beyond sight. This difference confuses the undisciplined mind. It judges every choice by the feeling of the present moment. The wiser mind studies the direction created by that choice. A pleasant evening can become a wasted season. A difficult hour can become the foundation of a different life. Temporary discomfort is not always damage, just as temporary pleasure is not always freedom. Some forms of pain are warnings while others are invitations to grow. Wisdom lies in knowing which one stands before you. The pain of discipline has purpose. It teaches the body to obey a clear decision. Sharpen strengthens self-respect and reduces dependence on mood. Each completed task proves that resistance can be endured without surrender. Each necessary sacrifice clears space for a larger future. None of this means treating exhaustion as virtue or destroying health in the name of ambition. Meaningful discipline is not blind punishment, it is conscious investment. It understands recovery, respects limits, and still refuses to let comfort become the rule of the day. Regret grows wherever fear is repeatedly allowed to make permanent decisions. It feeds on the sentence, "There is still time." That sentence may be true today, but time does not remain patient forever. The body changes, opportunities close, responsibilities increase, and certain doors disappear without announcement. A dream postponed long enough can become a memory of someone you almost became. This is not meant to create panic. It is meant to restore urgency. Life does not ask you to complete everything at once. It asks you to stop betraying what matters. Begin with the next action that respects your future. Make the call, finish the work, enter the room. Leave the habit, speak the truth, protect the hour. Courage rarely feels grand while it is happening. Often, it feels like discomfort accepted without drama. The strongest decisions are sometimes invisible to everyone except the person making them. A meal refused, a distraction removed, an old pattern interrupted, a promise kept. These moments seem small, yet they separate two destinies. One path leads toward self-command, the other leads toward a quiet resentment of your own hesitation. The exchange is always taking place every day. You trade time for something, you trade attention for something, you trade energy for something. Make certain the return is worthy of the life being spent. The future version of you will inherit every choice made in private. That person will live inside the body you build, the habits you repeat, the courage you practice, and the standards you protect. Choose the pain that leaves strength behind. Accept the difficulty that moves you closer to truth. Let effort become the price of freedom before regret becomes the price of avoidance. When this choice is made consistently, discipline stops feeling like deprivation. It becomes devotion to the person waiting beyond your excuses. And as that devotion deepens, a new identity begins to emerge, quietly, steadily, until silence itself starts carrying the evidence of who you have become. As devotion to your future becomes stronger than attachment to comfort, a new identity begins to take shape beneath the surface. At first, the change is almost invisible. Your face may look the same, your surroundings may remain unchanged, and the world may offer no recognition. Yet the person making decisions inside you is no longer governed by the same fears. Silence becomes the place where this transformation gathers strength. You stop announcing every intention because the need to be seen begins to lose its grip. Energy once spent explaining plans is redirected toward building them. Approval becomes less important than alignment. Praise becomes less valuable than the quiet certainty that your actions now match your principles. This is how a new identity is formed, not through a dramatic declaration, but through evidence repeated until doubt has nowhere left to stand. 5 years from now, your life will reflect the standards you protect today. The body you inhabit will carry the memory of movement or neglect. Your mind will reveal what it was trained to focus on. Relationships will show which boundaries were honored. Opportunities will expose the level of preparation completed when nobody was watching. The future does not arrive as a stranger. It grows from the habits you practice in private. This is why secrecy can become sacred, not secrecy born from fear, but the quiet protection of work that is still becoming strong. A seed is not weak because it grows underground. It is gathering the structure required to rise. Your deepest progress may need the same shelter. There is no obligation to convince others before the result exists. Let consistency speak when the time is right. Let character become the argument. Let peace become the proof. The old identity may still attempt to return. It may remind you of former failures, revive forgotten excuses, or suggest that change cannot last. Listen without obedience. That voice was shaped by repetition, and repetition can reshape it. Each disciplined response weakens the authority of the past. Every honest decision strengthens the person emerging now. Eventually, the struggle becomes quieter. Paths that once required force begin to feel natural. Boundaries that once produced guilt begin to feel necessary. Solitude that once felt empty becomes a place of clarity. You no longer chase every invitation, react to every opinion, or defend yourself against every misunderstanding. The need to prove your worth fades because your life has become rooted in something deeper than public judgment. This does not make you distant or cold, it makes you selective. Attention is no longer scattered across people and habits that pull you away from your direction. Time is treated as life because that is what it is. Focus is protected as a form of respect. Speech becomes more precise. Action carries more weight. Calm replaces the urgency to impress. A person built in this way becomes difficult to manipulate because identity no longer depends on applause. Rejection loses its power to define value. Criticism becomes something to examine, not something to fear. Success no longer produces arrogance because you remember the silent years that made it possible. Failure no longer destroys direction because your worth is not attached to a single outcome. This is inner freedom. It is not the absence of pressure, but the presence of a stable center. The world may remain unpredictable, yet your response becomes deliberate. Hardship may return, but it will meet deeper roots. Temptation may appear, but it will face stronger standards. Uncertainty may surround you, but it will no longer erase your sense of self. The person you once hoped to become is not waiting at the end of a perfect journey. That person is created through the way you stand inside imperfect days. Begin before confidence feels complete. Continue when progress feels ordinary. Correct mistakes without turning them into identity. Protect the promises that shape your future. There is no need for a final moment when everything suddenly makes sense. Life is built through repeated returns to what matters. One day, people may call your transformation sudden because they did not witness the morning's sacrifice, correction, and quiet battles that made it possible. Their surprise will not matter. You will know the truth. The visible result was only the final expression of invisible discipline. By then, silence will no longer feel empty. It will carry the weight of every promise kept, every excuse released, every difficult choice accepted, and every private victory that rebuilt your character. That is when silence speaks, not through words, but through the unmistakable presence of someone who finally became worthy of their own respect.